Do not worry, that was before you. Hey everyone, settle in, because today feels like one of those days where every story starts with one tiny crack and then the whole wall comes down. Whether you are driving, working late, or just lying there with your thoughts, I have 6 stories that move from betrayal to family fallout to the kind of heartbreak that lingers after the room goes quiet. And the very first one, it starts with one sentence that made a husband question 20 years of his life. Story 2 is about a man who changed his body and his life, only to realize the world had always been kinder to the version of him it found easier to look at. Story 3 is about an expectant father deciding that protecting his wife and daughter matters more than appeasing the sister who never stopped resenting him. Story 4 is for anyone who has ever been told not to worry about the other person, right before discovering that other person was woven through the whole relationship. Story 5 is about an 18-year-old son watching his family struggle to eat, only to find out his mother spent a fortune on something they could not survive. And Story 6 ends with a daughter driving away from the father who failed her, only to discover that justice and guilt can ride in the same car. Story 1. How do you even process that? For more than 20 years, I thought I knew what my life was. I thought I knew my marriage, my home, my circle of friends, even the rhythm of our weekends. We were the kind of couple who had history packed into every room: shared bills, shared routines, shared children, shared friends, shared inside jokes. I thought if something that catastrophic had ever happened inside my marriage, I would have felt it. I would have seen it. I did not. The whole thing cracked open at a birthday party. Nothing dramatic at first, just middle-aged people standing around with drinks, talking too loudly, pretending everybody still had good knees and strong livers. My wife used to work as a social worker, and she was often around police officers through that job, so seeing some of those men there did not feel strange. They had been around us for years. I had bought them drinks. I had hosted them. I had stood around lakes and grills and birthdays, acting like we were all just friends. Then one of them got drunk enough to stop editing himself. He was talking with a few other men, already slipping into that ugly, smug way some men talk when they think everybody in the circle is the same kind of man they are. He was making crude remarks about women, about dancers, about things that already had me irritated. Then he mentioned my wife. I stepped in because I was not going to stand there and let him talk about her like that. And that was when he looked at me and said it, calm as anything, casual, almost amused. Do not worry, that was before you. The problem was, I knew that was impossible. She did not even know him before we were married. I remember feeling heat climb up my neck, but I also remember staying quiet, because humiliation can do that to you. It can pin you in place. I did not want to make a scene in a room full of people who might already know more about my life than I did, so I stayed there, smiling badly, swallowing hard, and waiting to leave. That night, when we got home, I confronted her. At first, she denied everything. She went pale, then defensive, then vague, then silent. I kept pressing because by then I already knew. The denial was not real. It was just delay. Eventually, she admitted enough to destroy me. She told me there had been cheating. Not once, not a single stupid night, repeatedly, enough that she described periods where it may have happened 7 or 8 times a week. 7 or 8 times a week, with men I had known, men who had been in our orbit, men who had shaken my hand, laughed at my table, taken food from my kitchen, and somehow still managed to look me in the eye like I was not the punchline to a secret I never agreed to be part of. That is the part I cannot get past. Of course, the cheating itself is devastating, but betrayal from one person is one kind of pain. Betrayal from a whole room is another. It means I start replaying every barbecue, every old conversation, every invitation, every laugh, every time somebody called me buddy. I start wondering whether I was ever in the same reality as everyone else. I start asking questions I never wanted to ask. Was it only in the past? Was it still happening? Why were these men still around us? Why would she keep them close if she wanted to build a real life with me? And then the darkest questions arrive. Are my children mine? Was anything I believed actually true? And because life enjoys one last twist of the knife, while I was sitting there trying to absorb the fact that my marriage might have been built on a lie, one of those same men texted me asking if I was still coming to the lake that weekend. I have never felt more foolish in my life. End story. Here is what I think. He is not overreacting. He is waking up inside a ruined reality, and the reason it feels so disorienting is because the betrayal was social, not just romantic. His wife did not simply break trust with him. She allowed him to keep bonding with the men who helped shatter it. That turns every memory toxic. He does not owe anyone calmness right now, and he definitely does not owe anybody a lake trip, a smile, or one more night of pretending. If he stays in that marriage long enough to get answers, that is his choice. If he walks out immediately, that is valid too. But what he cannot do is protect the comfort of people who spent years refusing to protect his dignity. Would you leave right away or stay long enough to learn the full truth? Let me know below. Story 2. The world liked me better after I changed. I am in my late 20s now, and I should probably feel grateful. That is what people would say if I explained my life in bullet points. I got corrective surgery for the eye condition that made me stand out in all the wrong ways when I was younger. I lost around 80 pounds. I became more social. People started smiling at me more. Strangers treated me differently. Friends invited me out more often. Women initiated conversations with me. I even met someone wonderful without trying to force it. On paper, that sounds like a success story. Sometimes it even feels like one. But then nighttime comes, the room gets quiet, and I remember what life felt like before any of that changed. I grew up in Brazil with strabismus, which meant one of my eyes was visibly misaligned. That alone made me self-conscious all the time. Add weight gain in my late teens, plus isolation, plus the kind of inward life a lonely person builds when he learns early that people notice him before they know him, and it shaped everything. I spent years shrinking myself, years staying inside, years assuming the world had already decided what I was worth. So I might as well stop asking it to reconsider. When I was 23, I finally had surgery in Argentina, and it worked. Around the same time, I started running every day, going to the gym, doing all the disciplined, repetitive things people clap for after they can see the result. Slowly, then all at once, my body changed. My face changed. The way rooms responded to me changed. That last part is what nobody prepares you for. People who used to barely register me suddenly became warm. People who never made the effort now found me interesting. Social invitations multiplied. Casual kindness appeared from everywhere, and the cruelest thing about it is that it would almost be easier if they had been openly mean before. But a lot of them were not openly mean. They were just cooler, flatter, less curious, less generous. They gave me less. And once I knew what more looked like, I could not unsee it. I started realizing that some of the affection in my life was conditional on appearance. Even some family interactions felt different. Even some friendships felt polished in a way they never had before. It made me question whether people had grown kinder or whether I had simply become easier for them to value. That thought sits in my chest like a stone. Because yes, I am happier in many ways. I like my life more now. I like my body more now. I like the freedom of not entering every room already bracing for judgment. But there is grief inside that improvement. Grief for the younger version of me who had to work twice as hard just to receive half as much warmth. Grief for all the years I thought I was imagining the difference. Grief for the fact that part of me still wants to ask people, so which version of me are you actually being kind to? I have not said any of this out loud. I do not want to sound bitter or ungrateful. I do not want people to think I am angry because life got better. It is not that simple. I am angry because better exposed something ugly. I am angry because it confirmed that some people really do distribute kindness according to comfort, beauty, status, and ease. And once you feel that with your whole body, it is hard to go back to innocence. End story. Here is what I think. He is grieving two lives at once. He is glad he changed, and he is mourning the boy who never should have needed to change that much, just to be treated gently. That resentment makes sense, because it is not vanity talking. It is pattern recognition. The healthiest move for him is probably not to confront every single person from the past, but to start noticing who feels genuinely safe now, and who only became warm once the packaging improved. Some people will fail that test, and that will hurt. But that pain is cleaner than living surrounded by people whose kindness has conditions attached. Would you call out the people treating you differently or quietly build a better circle without them? Let me know below. Story 3. I am not inviting my sister this time. My sister is 10 years older than I am, And for a long time, I think she froze me in place at the worst version of myself. When I was younger, I was a mess. I got in trouble. I acted out. I made bad choices the way some teenagers do when they are all impulse and no wisdom. I am not pretending I was easy back then, but I am 34 now. I have a wife. I work hard. I have a home. We are expecting our first child, and for the first time in my life, I feel like I have built something steady with my own hands. My sister still talks to me like I am the family disappointment. That would already be exhausting, but it gets worse because she has openly admitted she does not like my wife, and some of that is about race. We are Hispanic. My wife is white. My sister has never even made a serious attempt to hide that resentment. My wife is 6 months pregnant, glowing, exhausted, excited, vulnerable, and my sister has not once acknowledged our child. Not once. It is like she cannot bear to give joy her blessing if that joy belongs to me. I should have learned my lesson at the wedding. I did not want to invite her then either. My wife and I had a simple rule for that day. If we called you at midnight on a random Tuesday, would you answer because you loved us? That was the standard. We only wanted people around us who truly supported us. My sister did not meet that standard, but my mother pushed hard. She made it clear that if my sister was excluded, she might stay home too. I folded because I wanted peace. I told myself one difficult guest was worth avoiding a family war. And then there are wedding photos where my sister is literally in the background scowling. So now the baby shower is coming up, and my mother has already started asking when the invitation is going out. The truth is, it is not. I made that decision before she even asked. I do not want my pregnant wife carrying the emotional burden of fake smiles and silent hostility at an event that is supposed to celebrate our daughter. I do not want to spend the whole day watching my sister's body language, waiting for her to sour the room. I do not want to repeat the same mistake just because somebody older than me finds conflict uncomfortable. Peace is not peace if my wife pays for it. That is the part I finally understand. What hurts is that this decision feels obvious and heartbreaking at the same time. It is obvious because I know what a healthy boundary looks like. It is heartbreaking because no matter how old I get, there is still some younger part of me that wants a sister. Not this version. Not someone who rolls her eyes at my happiness. Not someone who treats my wife like a problem to tolerate, but a sister in the real sense. The kind who shows up warm. The kind who says she is proud of me. The kind who reaches for my child with tenderness instead of resentment. I do not have that. Maybe I never will. And if this decision explodes into a bigger family issue, maybe that is overdue too. Because I am about to be somebody's father. I cannot keep teaching the people I love that they must accept disrespect to preserve appearances. If becoming a parent changes anything in me, I hope it changes that. End story. Here is what I think. He is choosing his household over a toxic tradition, and that is what a good husband and father should do. His sister has had years to soften, and instead has doubled down on contempt. His mother may hate the conflict, but protecting a racist, bitter dynamic just because it is familiar is not neutrality. It is complicity. He already tried the keep the peace version at his wedding, and it bought him photographs full of tension instead of family healing. This time, he is doing the adult thing. He is closing the door before somebody else brings poison into a room meant for his wife and child. Would you risk a family blow-up to protect the celebration, or invite her once more just to keep the peace? Let me know below. Story 4. He was never just a friend. I spent hours doing something I never wanted to become the kind of person who does. I cross-checked screenshots, call logs, photo timestamps, old messages, dates on pictures, everything I could get my hands on. Not because I enjoy obsession, not because I wanted to feel paranoid, but because my girlfriend kept repeating the same line every time his name came up. She said she only talked to him when we were fighting. She said he was just a friend. She said there was nothing there. I wanted to believe her so badly that I almost helped her build the lie. At first, I told myself maybe the timeline would make sense if I looked at it calmly. Maybe the overlaps were just awkward. Maybe my gut was dramatic. But every time I matched one piece of evidence to another, the story got worse. The problem was not only that Martin existed, the problem was that he existed right through some of the moments I held closest in my own memory. One of the worst examples was my birthday. I found a photo of us together just after midnight. We were smiling. I was holding the cake. Everything about that picture says ordinary happiness, the kind of moment you save because it proves the relationship was alive and good. Then I checked the call logs and saw his name there in the same window. Answered calls, not missed calls, answered. So while I was standing there, thinking I was loved in a simple, uncomplicated way, there was another man already threaded through the edges of that night. After that, I found more. One date where we had been out together at the ocean park, and his name still appeared in the logs. Other dates where we were affectionate, where we were calling each other love, where I was taking her places, buying flowers, planning a future, and there he was again, sometimes in the background of the day, sometimes in the background of the night, sometimes right inside the emotional center of it. The message that hit me hardest was not even the most explicit one. It was the intimacy of it. She told him she had thought of him 3 times that day. She told him she had dreamed about him. He asked what the dream was, and she answered in a playful way instead of shutting the whole thing down. Another time, she told him she felt she could be vulnerable with him. Another time, she reassured him when he felt threatened by me, as if his feelings deserved soothing while I was the person actually building a life with her. That is when I stopped caring whether anybody else would label it physical, emotional, innocent, or complicated. It was disloyal, it was hidden, it was protected, it was nurtured, and then, as if the whole thing needed one more layer of damage, some messages were deleted after I found out. That part might be what broke me most, because once somebody starts erasing evidence, the truth becomes permanently incomplete. You are no longer arguing about what happened. You are standing in a crime scene after somebody has already wiped the surfaces down. So now I am left with this ugly, unfinished feeling. I cannot prove every worst fear I have. I cannot say with certainty that they were physically involved, but I do know my trust did not die because of one dramatic reveal. It died because I kept seeing the same pattern repeated across normal days, loving moments, future plans, little acts of devotion, and private emotional space I did not even know I was sharing. She says he was just a friend. No, he was competition she wanted to keep warm. End story. Here is what I think. He does not need one final piece of proof to justify how betrayed he feels. Emotional cheating is still cheating when attention, secrecy, fantasy, and loyalty are all being redirected away from the relationship. The repeated overlap is what condemns this situation. It means she was not reaching for another person only when things were broken. She was feeding that bond while she was still accepting love, gifts, and future plans from her boyfriend. And once messages started disappearing, trust should have disappeared with them. He is not crazy for feeling haunted. He is reacting to a pattern that was real. Would you leave over emotional betrayal alone or stay unless there was proof it turned physical? Let me know below. Wang, Bavaria. My family was struggling to eat. I am 18, and for as long as I can remember, money has felt like something that enters our house already on fire. My mother is a non-citizen single mother living in Saudi Arabia, which means stable work has been incredibly hard for her to find since the divorce. There are 5 of us children. Some years were so bad that cup noodles and rice were not backup food. They were the plan. Things improved a little over time. Some child support started coming in. A government aid program helped. It was still fragile, but at least we were not drowning every single day. Then another truth settled in, and that truth was that my mother did not just have money problems. She had spending problems, compulsive buying, endless packages, random products, health supplements nobody needed, a house filling up with things while the refrigerator kept looking emptier than it should. There was a year when she almost got us evicted because she ignored rent for months. Even during that crisis, new junk kept arriving, buy now, pay later accounts. Maxed out. Then borrowed accounts got used. The car stopped working. The fridge went bare near the end of each month. We would reach those last 10 days and no meals were about to shrink again. So when my older sister called and told me our mother was in the hospital for stomach surgery, I panicked in the normal way a child panics. I thought maybe something terrible had happened. I thought maybe she had been hiding a serious health issue from us. Then my sister reluctantly told me the truth. It was a tummy tuck, a cosmetic procedure, around 40,000 Saudi riyals, in a house where the total income barely reaches 5,000 a month and rent alone eats a huge piece of that. I do not think I slept that night. I just kept staring into the dark, trying to understand how a mother looks at her children, sees unpaid bills, sees an empty fridge, sees a broken car, sees a future balanced on child support and aid, and still signs for surgery that expensive. Not emergency treatment, not something life-saving, cosmetic surgery. When I visited her the next day, she could tell something was wrong. I could barely look at her. I started crying and asked why she did it. She lied straight to my face from the hospital bed and said it had been a tumor, as if I was cruel for being upset about her getting treated. I did not argue because she was in recovery, and I did not want to be the person screaming at someone in pain. But that lie hit almost as hard as the surgery itself, because it told me she already knew what she had done could not survive honest daylight. Later, my sister told me she had tried for days to talk her out of it and got nowhere. So now I am sitting in this awful place where I am angry, terrified, guilty, and numb at the same time. I am thinking about debt. I am thinking about my younger siblings. I am thinking about whether I need to involve other family members. I am thinking about my own future because I had been talking about continuing my education, and suddenly, even that feels like something fragile that can be taken away by one reckless choice from somebody who is supposed to protect us. I think what hurts most is not only the money, it is the selfishness of the decision, the message inside it, the fact that somewhere in her mind, changing her body outranked feeding ours, stabilizing our home, or securing the next month. How do you feel safe after that? How do you trust the person holding the little money you have left? I do not have an answer yet. End story. Here is what I think. He is not being dramatic. He is reacting to financial betrayal inside a survival-level household. When a family is counting meals, cosmetic debt is not just irresponsible, it is destabilizing. The lie afterward matters too, because it shows his mother wanted the emotional shield of a medical emergency without facing the truth of a vanity decision. He may not be able to fix her behavior, but he is right to start thinking strategically now. How to protect his education, how to protect his younger siblings, and how to stop letting chaos pass as normal. Love for a parent does not require blindness to damage. Would you involve the wider family immediately or stay quiet until the recovery period is over? Let me know below. Let me know below. Story 6. I drove away from my father. My father has always wanted credit for the smallest scraps of fatherhood while dodging every real responsibility that word is supposed to carry. When I was growing up, even before he left, he barely spoke to me. He did not contribute money for clothes, food, school supplies, glasses, any of it. My mother carried all of that on her own while he floated in and out of the story telling himself he was still a good father because he remembered my birthday and Christmas. He would call twice a year, promised to visit, promised to bring gifts, promised to show up. In 2 decades, he followed through maybe twice. And when he did, he mostly used the time to blame my mother for everything and pretend he was the victim of his own neglect. My mother, for reasons I still struggle with, kept telling me I should try to maintain a relationship with him. So for a while I did. I answered calls I did not want. I tolerated excuses I did not believe. I kept a tiny door open for someone who had never once built a home inside it. Eventually, I got older and stopped answering. More than a decade passed where I barely saw him and honestly did not miss the stress of him. Then last year he came back because he had a stroke. Suddenly he wanted lunch. Suddenly he wanted conversation. Suddenly he wanted to know about my life, my day, my work. At first, pity pulled me in. I told myself maybe illness had changed him. Maybe this was the late, awkward beginning of the relationship I should have had as a child. But it did not take long to see what was really happening. The lunches got more frequent. Then he started asking for rides home, then rides to doctor appointments, then hints about how nice it would be if he could stay with me. It was not remorse, it was need. He was not returning because he finally understood the pain he caused. He was shopping for a caretaker. Once I saw that clearly, I cut things off. I blocked his number. I stopped participating. And then, months later, he showed up at my job demanding an explanation, like he was entitled to one. I told him the truth. I said he did not deserve to have a daughter take care of him now, that he was sick when he never took care of me when I was a child. I reminded him that while my mother worked herself to exhaustion feeding me, he had still managed to vacation in France and Cuba. He even had the nerve to say nobody had ever asked him for anything. Asked him? He is my father. Feeding your child is not a favor you wait to be requested for. At some point, he started crying. Real tears, or maybe convenient tears. I honestly do not know anymore. Then he asked me for one more thing, just a ride to the train station. One small act, one small mercy. And standing there with years of absence pressing on my chest, I told him he had gotten himself there, and he could figure out how to get himself home. Then I got in my car and drove away. Then I wish I could tell you it felt clean. I wish I could say I felt powerful, free, healed, vindicated, settled. Instead, I felt sick. My hands shook. I wanted to cry. Even now, I keep replaying the moment, wondering whether leaving him there made me cruel. But another part of me knows exactly why it hurts. It hurts because decent people feel pain when they deny help, even to someone who failed them. It hurts because children are trained to think parents carry a sacred status, no matter what they actually did with it. It hurts because I wanted a father for so long that even rejecting the counterfeit version feels like grief. What scares me now is that he will keep showing up, keep making scenes, keep forcing me into this role where I have to defend a boundary that should have been obvious the first time I said no. But if I am honest, the reason I drove away is simple. I finally understood that helping him now would not heal my childhood. It would only bury it again. End story. Here is what I think. She did not abandon a loving father on the side of the road. She refused one more demand from a man who abandoned her long before that parking lot scene ever happened. The guilt is real because she still has empathy, not because she made the wrong choice. He returned when he needed labor, transport, care, and emotional absolution. That is not reconciliation. That is opportunism wearing family language. If she lets that guilt steer the car now, she will likely be dragged back into a cycle where his emergencies always matter and her childhood never does. Boundaries often feel brutal when they are brand new, especially with parents. That does not mean they are wrong. Would you have driven him to the station one last time, or kept the boundary exactly where she did? Let me know below. That is all I have for you tonight. 6 stories and more than enough proof that heartbreak does not always arrive from strangers. If one of these stories stayed with you, hit like before you go. It helps more than you know, and it tells me you want another stack of chaos and hard truths tomorrow. And if this kind of storytelling already fits into your drive, your chores, or your wind down at the end of the day, stay close and subscribe to Relationship Stories so I can keep bringing you a fresh set every single day. Take care of your heart, trust your instincts, and I will meet you back here soon.